Hello. So, I'm Andy Robertson. This is what I do. I'm 34 years old, I'm from the Midlands, but I feel like London is home for me now because, well, I live here. I work on the South Bank, I make sculptures. This is my office. I call it the dirty beach because sometimes it is quite dirty. The tide will leave lots of litter and I'll have to clean that up before I make something. But I like the freedom of it. It's an unusual job. A lot of people say to me, how did you end up doing this for a living? I've had a lot of weird jobs. But this one is because I was homeless randomly. I don't know how that happened randomly. I think, I wanted to work very hard at being self-employed, but I wasn't very good at it. So I ended up not being able to pay my rent. When I was at school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. That's why I've done so many different things. I wanted to be a scientist or a rock star or an artist or a musician or a weatherman. That was a bit weird. But I didn't have a sort of a set goal. So I did physics, maths, and chemistry A-levels, and then I dropped out. So I did physics. Well, I liked physics. I did chemistry HND, and then I dropped out. And then I did a business studies GMVQ, and guess what? I dropped out. And I ended up working as a magician for a while. I thought that was fun for a bit. I opened a magic shop with a business partner who was quite good at magic. He actually made all my money disappear, hence being homeless. That's all the possessions that I had with me at the time. That was taken about 12 years ago. But it's good fun, and I still do that today. Do you know this guy? Jeremy Corbyn, he's a local hero. I quite like him. I've been making a lot of political sculptures more recently because I've set up my own political party. We're called the Beach Party. We've got very socialist ideas, a bit like Jeremy here. We want to end poverty and inequality. I think that we should all have access to free higher education, free healthcare, but also free housing and free food and free utilities. And it's possible, We spend more money on war globally in 1 week than it would cost to get rid of global poverty for a year. So why can't we do that? And people are talking about that like Jeremy, but he gets ridiculed in the mainstream press because they don't like him. You might have seen this in the Daily Mail a few weeks ago. I made that sculpture and I took that picture, but they stole it off me and they printed it without asking. I didn't even know it was there until a week later I spoke to my mother and she said, I saw you in the paper. I was like, what? So I contacted them and I complained and I got angry, quite ranty, and eventually they gave me 300 quid because what they did was illegal. They're not allowed to take someone's pictures and steal it and then print it. But they do. And also the whole story, they just made it up. It's not real news. They say Jeremy Corbyn, his career is built on sand. It's not. It's built on good ideas that would benefit the majority of people. That's why they ridicule him. I really don't like them, and they ridicule me as well. I mean, they say that I've got faith in this democratic system. That's why I started a political party. This is what they say in the papers. I don't. It's completely the opposite of why I started the Beach Party, because I have no faith in it. I don't think that, it's just corrupt to the core. It's built on lies, it's built on fear. And I started my political party to just highlight the problems that I see in our society. That could look after everyone. But I think democracy is an illusion. It's an illusion perpetuated by the rich, so the poor people don't revolt. But, I found out that if I wanted to run for the general election, not one of my friends or family were allowed to vote for me because they live in a different constituency. They call it gerrymandering, but I call it divide and conquer. And I find it frustrating. That isn't democracy. In the last general election, there were some political parties that they got an MP voted into Parliament with about 23,000 votes, and there are other political parties that had almost 4 million votes, and they only got one MP. That's not democracy. But the people who control our system, they design it in a way so they can continue to control our system, which I find quite frustrating. So I try to make the point, this says, a king rules a kingdom, An emperor rules an empire, but who runs this country? I think it's actually self-evident. And I've been having fun this summer talking about politics. I mean, it's called Let's Play Name That War Criminal. You know, it's weird. A lot of people thank you very much. A lot of people have the same reaction to that. Even people were guessing who that was before I'd even made a person sat there. Is that going to be Tony Blair? Yes, that's who it's meant to be. And he's made £100 million as a result of making decisions that have killed, I don't know, almost 1 million innocent people maybe. But we shouldn't reward people like that. Unfortunately, we don't live in a democracy, we live in a plutocracy. So I've been campaigning against that. I also think that the cuts that are affecting the poorest people in society, we don't need to do that. I don't know where that N was meant to come from. It's aimed at the bankers, because they caused the economic collapse that we have, and I've lived through. It's like the worst financial crisis that I'm aware of, and it's almost like the bankers were taking all the money out of the banks and putting it in their pockets in various devious ways. And then eventually they said, oh, hang on, we've run out of money in the banks. That's because you put it all in your pockets. And now the poor people are suffering with the austerity measures that are being put in place because the public had to bail out these financial institutions. It's like a bank robbery has gone on, and not one person's being held accountable because the rich people, the financial institutions, they have the politicians in their pocket, which is why I like Jeremy Corbyn. But anyway, I don't rant all the time. Sometimes it's good fun. I like to make sofas on the South Bank. They're like my trademark. It's a bit weird. Kids will see me making a sofa and say, oh, look, it's The Simpsons. He's making The Simpsons. It's nice, just a sofa. But sometimes it is The Simpsons. I quite like that as a cartoon show, and I quite like Bender. He's one of my favourite characters. It's the same creator as The Simpsons that made Futurama. And this is a robot from Futurama with this statement. It says, give a man a gun, he can rob a bank. But give a man a bank, he can rob the country. And that's what's happened. We've been robbed. The world has been robbed collectively by the richest elite, and they control all the politicians. So, they get away with it. And I find that frustrating. But, you can't dwell on that. You can highlight the problems, but that'll send you mad if you focus on that every day. So I've got other projects, like I've done lots of crazy things. I want to make robots that live on the beach and pick up litter. So this is why I've been making Bender so much in the last year. I've been advertising my Kickstarter and my crowdfunding. Unfortunately, that's finished now, and I only got like 2% of what I was aiming for, so I've not done that. But basically, I want robots that would live on the beach, pick up litter that you could control in an online computer game. Like you're playing The Sims, but you're actually making real-world positive impact by driving them around. And you could also earn money for playing. If the robots were powered by wind and sun, but connected to the internet, and they could drag a rake behind them so they could make a light, dark contrast in the sand. They could make like a Banksy image on the beach that we could make any sort of image. We could sell that as advertising, which would be quite effective advertising because, people will take photographs of it, but you don't take pictures of billboards, you just ignore them. It'll only last for a day, but it's completely green advertising, powered by the wind and the sun, with no paper or plastics involved. But no one seemed interested. So I even went on the Dragon's Den and I pitched this idea to them. And they loved it. I was chatting to them for over an hour about the intricacies of how it's going to work, but eventually they all said no. Hey-ho. And when they broadcast it, they cut all the talk about technology and robots out of my pitch, so it looked like I wanted $100,000 to, set up a mobile beach bar, which that wasn't the case. That would be an awesome bar, but that wasn't the plan. I had better ideas than that. So I make sandcastles, I don't make robots. This was at a sculpting competition in Texas, and I traveled the world making these sandcastles. It's a great way to spend my time. This was in San Francisco. Cheeky, but fun. So you get it, cheeky but first. Anyway, this was on a nudist beach. I have literally traveled to all the most glamorous places on the planet. I worked in the Bahamas, Miami, Australia. I've done Indonesia. But I think the most glamorous place that I've visited is Croydon. Yeah. So I did this. The reason I'm putting this in there because it's quite memorable for me. This was made last year. This was actually my last corporate gig because I've decided that I've done loads of corporate gigs and they always promise, oh, we don't have much money, but we can give you some good exposure. And after a while, that starts to wear thin. So after this one, I've still been getting lots of inquiries via email saying, can you come and build whatever at this whatever? And I say, yeah, definitely. But I want £10,000. And it's not come yet, but you don't ask, you don't get. I've done like loads of crazy stuff. This was at T4 on the beach, Channel 4. I made their set for them to interview their celebrities on. But when I worked out that there was a crew of 4 of my friends working for a few days, we all earned about £25 a day. That wasn't very good. They promised me a TV credit at the end of this, and they forgot to give it me. So I made a video with the celebrities and the actors that they were interviewing. I put it on my website, which I thought that they'd find fantastic because it's really funny. They'd see me as a producer as well as a good writer. I don't just make the set, but they sent me a message saying, you've got to take this off the internet because it's very rude. When we performed it, everyone was laughing, everyone loved it, but they forgot to give me a TV credit, so I forgot to take it off the internet. So you can check that out. It's actually worth a watch. But they've never asked me to go back after that, funnily enough. So I just busked down on the South Bank, actually. I can earn more money on the South Bank than I can at these corporate events, weirdly enough. This was me doing a Banksy piece, and this is me doing a piece for Banksy. I worked at the Cannes Street Art exhibition down in Waterloo. It was a few years ago. It's really good fun, really good exposure. Paid me nothing. But, I got to make a sofa with Banksy. Sometimes I do get good money. I made this in a quarry up in the Midlands. They found a mammoth tusk when they were dredging for sand, so we made a life-size mammoth skeleton. It was actually quite big. And then they said to me, what would you like to make? So I saw this big pile of sand. I said, let's make a sofa. It's my trademark now. That's actually the world's largest sand sofa ever made. It was humongous. I'm 6'1" and stood on the back. It was taller than me. Yeah, you could fit about 70 people on it. I've been all over. This was at Glastonbury. I made my sofa stage for performance. This was at the Isle of Wight Festival, Secret Garden Party. I do travel around quite a bit, but I prefer being on the South Bank than doing that because I get to do what I want, and I've got no one telling me what to do. So, it's quite fun. I use the beach as a stage for music and comedy. And I'm going to leave you with a poem. It's what I sometimes perform when I'm on the sand. It's called Slaves in Paradise. As I walk through the alley at the back of the house, taking rubbish to the bins, I see a mouse. So I stop with the bags in my hand and stand still. And this mouse watches me without moving until he told me a truth without saying a word. He said, you're a rat in a race. You're locked in a herd, like a bird in a cage or a turd in a box. You're going round being bound up by the hands on the clocks, with the notion that the oceans and the lines in the sand are the borders marking orders of where we can stand. It's crazy that this mouse has more freedom than me, so I drop out the rat race and try living free. And this is actually a true story. Freedom was the reason for a while I was sleeping on the street while I was fighting with the coppers I meet on the beat to move the poor and clear the floor under a law to keep it neat. I lost the battle, but the war isn't complete. As the elite abuse their powers while they cower in their towers made of slavery and ivory and sour twisted irony where state demands society adheres to noble hierarchy, but I say, hey, no fucking way. How do you make the choice of how to earn a wage? You join the rats in a race round a cage, and it's staged. Tony Blair now acts as though he won the race, while tough luck, look, he needs a slap in the face from the Hague or the wrist with the handcuffs. But strangely enough, he just keeps winning more stuff, like awards and rewards like he's a good guy, acting philanthropic. He's making pigs fly, and we keep spending most of our life living like slaves in paradise. But why are we spending most of our life living like slaves in paradise? Well, power gives you money, and money gives you power. So every minute, every second, every day of every hour, 99% of people lose their powers to the rich ones. And what for? When Blair started a war as a response to some knee-jerk lies we were fed, and we kicked ass making money for the upper-class guys, but instead the better class of people just say no, like Edward Snowden. He's the whistleblowing hero. And I wanted to say Julian Assange there too, but his name didn't rhyme, so what can you do? Anyway, why are we so blind to see this democracy is a hypocrisy? Why are we so blind to see that the rat race make the poor face misery, slavery, and war? And what is it for? It's making money for the rich. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I've been Andy Robertson.
Thank you, Andrew.